Well, everyone, it's time for more DNC recap. I know, like I said before, a lot of you guys who've already watched this are going to be like, ah, damn it, Zan, why'd you have to take so much time off stream? Why couldn't you have covered this when it was happening? Well, to be fair, if I had covered this as it was happening, I would have either had to stay quiet, talk over the speeches, mute them whenever they're talking, or pause it and then constantly be behind. Here, though, there's no pressure to, like, keep the live going. I can actually just, like, take apart the speeches, elaborate on their points, talk about why the speeches are good or bad. And maybe we can even do, like, I don't know, a tier list or a comparison, like, a ranking of who had the best speech of the DNC. That could help to make things a little more interesting. But first, yesterday, we watched a few of the speeches, particularly Kamala Harris's speech. Right now, though, I've got Barack Obama's, aka Obama, as the internet likes to say, Obama's speech queued up. I actually haven't heard Obama speak in a while, and you know what I really miss? I'm not gonna lie, you can call me the biggest liberal in the world. I miss Obama doing public speaking all the time and hearing him talk. He was a great public speaker. There's absolutely no denying that. And his presidency was one where it you could always reliably know that the president was going to have a very well-spoken, probably well-written, and comforting statement to make. Like, even if the policy wasn't perfect, you knew that you were at least going to have what sounded like a human being talking to the nation when giving an address. And Obama was also really funny. Like, he's also quite funny. He had, like, a lot of charisma as well. He's a good speaker. He should be used as an example in communications classes. I'm almost certain he is. Like, I'm pretty certain Obama's speaking method and the way that he did public speaking is literally taught in communications classes. I'm pretty sure every president's communication is taught in communications classes. Like, picking apart flaws and, like, highlighting the achievements, right? Like, you could look at Trump's presentation and actually compliment some things and find things that are wrong, right? A thing that Trump does that's really good is his hand movements. Something that makes Trump really entertaining to watch speak is his hand movements. My camera kind of cuts me off here, but I also kind of do it too. I'm very expressive with my hands as well. That is something that makes people a lot more attentive and makes you a lot more entertaining to see talk. And Obama has that too, to a degree. He moves his hands around, but nowhere near as much as Trump does. Nowhere near as close.
I have one more
Let's
job
watch
tonight. Yeah. One more job. You all, thank you for all the love.
You know what's neat? Me doing the DNC thing in multiple parts is kind of like how the DNC was done, because it was a multi-day event. So me covering this over the course of multiple days, I don't know, it kind of re-emulates it makes it feel like the DNC is still happening, at least for me.
Love, but it is
like
now
Christmas,
my
guys.
honor to introduce somebody who knows a whole lot about hope. Someone who has spent his life strengthening our democracy, and let me tell you, as someone who lives with him, he wakes up every day, and thinks about what's best for this country. Please welcome America's 44th president and the love of my life, Barack Obama.
I really want to do, like, a research stream one day, or maybe I'll just do the research off stream. I want to look into, like, a lot of the popular left-wing talking points against Obama. Because there are a lot of talking points you'll hear, like, Democrat voters use. Like I heard a lot of these talking points against Obama that were supposed to be attacking him from the left, from Democrat voters, and several of those examples have been proven completely false, that were literally psyop talking points started by the right that caught on with progressives because it sounded like a progressive critique that, you know, sounded about right. And mind you, back in 2008, while there were computers and stuff, not everybody was on the internet in the same way they are now. So just going and Googling something you heard to fact check it just wasn't something people did. So if it sounded right, people just kind of believed it more back then, and much more so the further back you go. And so I don't know. I want to like go back and see how many of those talking points were complete bullshit. Like, was Obama actually a way better president than we really give him credit for in hindsight? Like the kids in cages thing. Like, I'm pretty sure Obama had kids put in cages. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he absolutely didn't have kids put in cages and like that he was actually keeping them in like very like nice like facilities that provide them everything they need that are almost like dorms, like if they're like with adults that are illegally immigrating into the country, or maybe they weren't even separate. I want to look into that and find out like how many of those talking points were just total bullshit. I already know that the whole Obama drone striked more than any Republican president ever thing was complete bullshit. So I'm just curious how many of those things were just total psyops that went unchecked.
Introducing her husband, former President Barack Obama, and the embrace on stage. The former First Lady saying, don't wait for an official call from any campaign, and said, consider this my official ask. Michelle Obama is asking you to do something, in her words, to play a role in this democracy. Many probably asking, how will the former president
That's copyrighted music. We got to be careful, guys. Copyrighted music. We wait until Mr. President is speaking.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
There it is. God, he really is a great speaker. His voice is perfect. It's like butter, you know what I mean?
No, that's enough. Thank you, thank you. Chicago!
Yep, that's where he's from.
It's good to be home. It is good to be home, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling fired up. I am feeling ready to go.
I want to see a comparison of 2008 Barack, 2012 Barack, 2016 Barack, and then 2024 Barack. Because I'm willing to bet he actually gained as much, like, more gray hair between 2008 and 2012 than he gained between 2016 and 2024. I think the presidency, the first round of the presidency he had gave him more gray hairs than the last 8 years have.
Even if I am the only person stupid enough to speak after Michelle Obama.
He's such a, like, what I love about this event, and they've really kept to this theme, and it's not even an act or like, it doesn't feel scripted. It just feels sort of natural, and it sort of ended up being a unspoken theme of this entire event, is how normal everyone in the Democratic Party in their leadership is. It's like, these are very normal people. Like, when you imagine what you want the rest of the world to think of when they think of an American, I think most Americans here would agree that they would like for Europeans and people like just outside of America to think of Tim Walz when they think of an American, right? The kind of guy who's like very much into like being a good role model, who believes in his country and is willing to die for it, but at the same time is like a caring, normal person who loves spending time with his family and isn't just some bloodthirsty maniac. Yeah, he owns guns and he goes out to hunt, but it's not like he's not some, you know, shitty like asshole about it. He's an all-American dude, and he's a normal guy, and so is Obama. And I feel like when we look at the Republicans right now and how dysfunctional their headliners are as people, just as people, not as politicians, but as people, it really does show a stark contrast, doesn't it? These family men and like dedicated moms and like loving siblings and grandparents we're seeing in the crowd and on stage here, talking about how much they love their family, how they had a upbringing. It's like, we know what their upbringing was like, because these politicians have been like stalked and researched on for decades at this point. They talk about their upbringing, and it's a relatable upbringing, as opposed to like Donald Trump, who inherited, what was it, like 100 million, 700 million or something in real estate from his dad? Was it 70 million? It had a 7 in it. It was close to 100 million, if I recall correctly. The figure doesn't stick with me. It slides off my tongue. Xander Hall, do you think it's possible that Iowa and some other Midwest states go blue because of Tim Walz? The last 3 Iowa went blue were for Obama twice, and in 1988 when the Dem had a VP pick from Texas. IDK about other Midwest states. Really hard to say, but Iowa is hard red right now, isn't it? I know that some reps coming out of Iowa are some of the most radically far right we've ever had in modern politics, so that could just be a bias on my part. Who knows? Maybe Iowa's ready to go blue. It's hard to say. We have dog shit reps. Yeah, your reps being so insane and so far right is what makes me doubt Iowa could go blue. But who knows? I could be wrong.
I am feeling hopeful because this convention has always been pretty good to kids with funny names who believe in a country where anything is possible.
Aww. He makes dad jokes.
Because we have a chance
Everyone loves
to
it.
elect someone who has spent her entire life trying to give people the same chances America gave her. Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you. The next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Let's go.
It's been 16 years since I had the honor of accepting this party's nomination for president.
God.
And
fuck.
I know that's hard to believe.
Well, guys, it's been a good run. Existence has been nice, but we're getting old. You know, our greatest times, our glory days, they're well behind us. We're old. We got nothing ahead of us. All the good things are behind us. It's over. What's that one Smiling Friends quote where Charlie and Pim are at the party? He's like, it's just, our glory days are behind us and all. It's nothing crazy. You just kind of accept it.
Believe because I have not aged a bit.
True.
But it's true. And looking back, I can say without question that my first big decision as your nominee turned out to be one of my best. And that was asking Joe Biden to serve by my side as vice president.
I love that this DNC is giving Joe Biden the credit he deserves. Because, let's really think about it for a moment. Joe Biden spends 4 years overperforming on his platform. You guys recognize that, right? Biden ran on a way more moderate platform than he actually executed while in office. Biden got more progressive in his policies once he got elected and actually became president. All the while, progressive, middle, and right-wing outlets are constantly attacking Biden. The thing is, he's not doing anything on the scale of Trump or most other politicians that are scandal-worthy. So they have to laser focus on the most nothing points, like his age and his stutter. Constantly laser focusing on it, highlighting it at every single point. Just as right-wing media is, by the way, until it's actually affecting people's perception of him. Giving as little lip service as possible to his amazing achievements. And then on top of that, at the end of it all, when we're in the last 100 days or whatever until the election, the party decides they're going to oust him. And instead of, because to be clear, Joe Biden did not have to step down. I want to make it very clear here. As far as I'm aware, there is nothing the party could have done to force Joe Biden to step down. He absolutely could have said no, held on to the presidency, and then ran again, lost or won, and there would be no consequences for him. He would be completely in his right to. So him stepping down and endorsing Kamala was, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people who are at least willing to give him the credit, their opinion, a very high mark of honor. He gave up, ceded that power at the request of the party that had basically turned their back on him. And I'm glad that at the very least that party is willing to give him the post-mortem credit. You know what I mean? Like, at least Joe Biden in his last, like, couple months of presidency and as well, going into history, he will get to be remembered well, but he will never get the credit he deserved during his presidency. It's kind of sad, you know? But I'm glad that the DNC event gave, like, a few shout-outs to Joe Biden, because it really has been the most progressive administration we've ever had, and I was surprised. I didn't expect it to be as good. Like, the pro-union stuff Biden has done, did not expect that. You could not... You would have never saw me check that off on my bingo card back in 2020.
Other than some common Irish blood, Joe and I come from different backgrounds. But we became brothers.
Imagine if he said, Joe and I both have hairy legs.
And as we worked together for 8, sometimes pretty tough years, what I came to admire most about Joe wasn't just his smarts, his experience. It was his empathy and his decency and his hard-earned resilience, his unshakable belief that everyone in this country deserves a fair shot.
Man, you gotta like, Obama's the one that headlined the Affordable Care Act. That's why people call it Obamacare. And mind you, this, like, gave health care to millions and millions of Americans. It's a huge deal. And then on top of that, Republicans, including Trump mainly, went and attacked the ACA and tried to destroy it. The Democrats and some Republicans barely managed to save it. And then Biden comes in and expands it and codifies it and protects it. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Obama and Biden get a lot of shit on from the left, when if you actually look at their time in office over the course of their presidency, America on a policy level has gotten better and more, like, the policy has gotten more progressive from the start of their presidency to the end, oftentimes more than I think you could expect when that candidate was running. I'd be curious to see how many, like, the chart of, like, unfulfilled promises during the campaign, like, comparing the last, like, 3 presidents. That would be interesting.
And over the last 4 years, those are the values America has needed most. At a time when millions of our fellow citizens were sick and dying, we needed a leader with the character to put politics aside and do what was right. At a time when our economy was reeling, we needed a leader with the determination to drive what would become the world's strongest recovery. 15 million jobs, higher wages, lower health care costs. At a time when the other party had turned into a cult of personality, we needed a leader who was steady and brought people together and was selfless enough to do the rarest thing there is in politics, putting his own ambition aside for the sake of the country.
That's him. That was him stepping down, by the way. He damn well better get credit for that. He damn well better get credit for that, because that is absolutely one of the most honorable things that someone in his position could have done. There was nobody making him do that. Like, no one made him do that. He decided, all right, yeah.
History will remember Joe Biden as an outstanding president who defended democracy at a moment of great danger. And I am proud to call him my president, but I am even prouder to call him my friend.
Nice.
Now, the torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us
I like that chant.
to
Thank you,
fight
Joe.
for the America we believe in. And make no mistake, it will be a fight. For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the memes.
The memes. I love him saying memes.
This will still be
He says
a
it such a
tight
great
race
way.
in a closely divided country. A country where too many Americans are still struggling. Where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. And as we gather here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our...
Hey, Obama did some good things, but overall he squandered the large majority he had in Congress in the first 2 years trying to come off as moderate, and his later years were underwhelming. So I'm curious about that, though, right? Because I've heard that, but that's not really that specific, right? Like, I would like to see... I'm not, like, accusing you of lying or being wrong or anything, by the way. I'm just sort of more... I'm expressing my curiosity to know more. I'm curious, like, what bills or policies did Obama run on that he did not follow through on in those first 2 years? Like, if he had a majority, what was the reason? Did he actively choose to push forward more moderate policies or not follow through? Was there actually, like, something blocking him? I'm curious. I want to know more, like, more specifics as to how he failed to meet people's expectations if he did, right?
Our future together. One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problem.
Good. You got to hit Trump on the old point. If they were gonna, everybody went after Joe Biden for being 4 years older than Trump. I think it was 4 years older, maybe 5. Trump is now the old geezer running for office. You damn well better believe those concerns about the candidate's age should follow through to Trump now, when Kamala is so much younger. And she has way more energy than Trump. No one can deny that Kamala has more energy than Trump, especially right now. The crowd has more energy, and she has more energy. Trump is actually getting to the point where his age is catching up to him. You've seen him speak lately, right? He loses his train of thought constantly. That's the thing people were constantly giving shit to Joe Biden for. He dodders a lot, just sort of like mumbling, you know, that sort of old man can't really muster the you know, Joe Biden also had this problem where it was hard for him to make his voice bellow. It came off as like he was talking through wispy strings or something. Yeah, Trump is now the one who has that problem where he can't even project his voice as much as Kamala can.
Since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago, it has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala.
Xander Hall, a lot of people don't understand that politicians sometimes need to make concessions with the opposition or can't push through their whole agenda at once, even if you want a staunch progressive agenda done. That's what I find more often than not is the case, and I think it's also important to remember politics got distinctly changed after Trump took office. Politics just was a bit different before, like during the Obama era, where the idea of civility and needing to stay moderate on some issues was like actually a necessity. like genuinely a necessity. The Republicans threw out all sort of expectations of civility and fairness, and have really kind of like destroyed the stage that we once knew. And so now the landscape's a bit different now. So I wonder if Obama being seen as underwhelming was also a product of the time. Like people think of that time as being similar to today, where you could be as brash and brazen in politics as you can be today back then. And if that's like people applying today's standard to back then, you know?
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day.
True. He's like the one neighbor that keeps shoveling snow into your yard.
Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous. The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him.
I don't want to harp on this because I went so hard on this point yesterday, but I always love how much the Democrats talk about the middle class, the middle class, the middle class. For those who don't know, here in America, from my understanding, because our poverty line here is so unbelievably low, it's like $12,000 for a single person per year. You have to make $12,000 or less to be below the poverty line in America. That's unbelievably low for a poverty line. You cannot exist on twice that in most of the not most of the country, but a lot of the country. And so with the poverty line so low, if you're above it, I guess you're considered middle class culturally in America, which does make up the vast majority of Americans. Most Americans don't live below the poverty line. It's set so low so that there are not statistics that show an accurate amount of Americans living in what would be considered poverty. And so when you send out this message to the middle class, the people hearing it and the people it's targeted to are absolutely people who are living in poverty, paycheck to paycheck, scrimping and saving just to get by, but they consider themselves middle class. Because in America, if you're not literally homeless, you're middle class.
And his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress that would have helped secure our southern border, because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign.
Yeah, so this is something I know that some progressives get upset about, but the fact is, an open border, like an actual open border, as conservatives describe it, wouldn't be good for America. It probably wouldn't be good for any country. There's a reason why, as far as I know, there are no countries, no matter how progressive, that just have straight up open borders, except for inside of unions with other countries, where it's like, well, as long as you're from one of these countries, you can travel through around the borders, no problem. You know, even on our border with Canada, one of the most, we're never going to have a problem. It's America light, you know, we might as well annex Canada. It's so America, right? It's so friendly with us. We have strong border security with Canada and vice versa. And I think there's good reason for that. I think there is good reason for wanting to make sure that entry and exiting your country is done on some managed level, some sort of log is kept and there is some kind of process. The problem with the immigration process as it stands today is it's so bad people think we'd be better off with no immigration process and just having open borders. A lot of you guys in chat, you probably would just like there to be open borders because our immigration process is just so bad right now. That would probably be better in a lot of people's view. The fact is, though, border security is a serious issue. There is a lot of organized crime, particularly south of the border. Not even in Mexico. It's actually mostly south of Mexico. But even in Mexico, as they're trying to deal with it and fight it, there's a lot of governmental and police corruption. It's a really big issue. And the Democrats actually want to solve it. They actually want to dedicate money to programs that are going to, in a non-violent, showy, macho way, like how Trump wants to just give a bunch of people living on the border guns so they can go, like, round up immigrants to lock them in cages. Instead, they want to devote the funding necessary to dismantling the organized crime south of the border, which is mostly responsible for drugs and sex trafficking victims getting in and out of this country. Yeah. Xander Hall, I used to believe in pure open borders, and then I realized, wait, the world is different than it used to be back in the 20s and 30s. We can't just have people pouring into Ellis Island anymore because the world has gotten so dark. I don't know if it's like the world has gotten so dark. I think it's more so that we have the means to very easily keep a log of like where people come from and where they're going if they come into the country. It's without it being like some massive thing that completely waylays someone's ability to immigrate, right? The immigration process as it stands today is like genuinely awful. There's a reason why so many people would just rather have open borders. Just open borders, better than what we have now. It's that bad.
He doesn't. Do not boo. Vote.
Do not boo. Vote. I like that.
He doesn't seem to care if more women lose their reproductive freedom, since it won't affect his life. And most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the real Americans, who of course...
Dude, I love Obama, man. Calling out the fact that Trump's been doing this whole, they're divisive, the Democrats are divisive. When they call everything we do that's so awful deplorable, they're just they're attacking you. They're trying to divide you. The fact is, it's very much projection. It's the other way around exactly and blatantly. And it needs to be called out more, and I love that Obama's doing it.
Of course, support him and the outsiders who don't. And he wants you to think that you'll be richer and safer if you will just give him the power to put those other people back in their place. It is one of the oldest tricks in politics from a guy whose act has, let's face it, gotten pretty stale. We do not need 4 more years.
Like, Trump is getting stale, I feel. Like, not necessarily the idea of Trump, that's not getting stale, but Trump himself is getting stale. He's not, I feel more and more he's not able to meet the expectations that people have for him. Did you see the quartering raging? Let me see if I can find this. I saw it on Twitter. Someone had sent this to me, and it was funny as hell. The quartering. Conservatives are getting really nervous about Trump. And how he's handling the election. Am I blocked by the quartering? I'm so blocked by the quartering, aren't I? Oh, he has me so blocked. Oh, no, he doesn't. Okay, okay. Huh, he must have taken the tweet down because it was so embarrassing. Basically, there was a clip that Kamala HQ had posted of the quartering, nervous about Trump and how he's handling the current state of the election, and the quartering quote tweeted it, threatening to DMCA it because they didn't have quote-unquote permission to use his likeness. I wonder if they did take it down. I hope they didn't, because I want to find the clip, because the clip is mostly what I wanted to show. Let me see. Maybe they did take it down. Well, damn. Here I go looking for lost media on stream again. Worst mistake of my life. All right. Never mind.
Bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story.
I love all the celebrity guests.
We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
It's really interesting because, like, most actors, artists, music artists, like a lot of the most beloved people in modern day society, generally speaking, lean left. It's not common that you find someone in like pop culture, like society, who gets famous off of something and ends up being conservative. It happens, but usually more often than not, it feels like some kind of spiral they go down, like years later, you know? Like Dave Chappelle used to be like one of, I think, the sharpest comedians out there, like at least one of the highest quality. Like he did whole skits and everything, which is pretty, you know, at least for the time when the Chappelle Show was on, that was, you know, pretty dedicated. There was like SNL and a couple other things doing that, but the skits were pretty high quality. And then after like his peak, Dave Chappelle makes a comeback and he starts kind of just like phoning it in. Like, let's be honest, if any conservatives watch this, like if you saw the Chappelle special where he's just ranting about trans people in bathrooms and stuff, doesn't it feel phoned in compared to like his greats? Like seriously, look up some of Dave Chappelle's greatest bits and tell me he's not phoning it in now when he like rants about trans people and the wokeness and stuff. He's phoning it in. Even if the subject matter was different, even if he was making arguments I agree with, I would still think he's phoning it in. And I'd be sad he's not bringing his A game to represent my positions. So you see that happen sometimes. Like J.K. Rowling as well makes Harry Potter, beloved for it, right? Years go by where she's even quite often defended by people on the left because a lot of Christian nationalist types always hated Harry Potter and burned the books because they thought it was satanic, witchcraft is evil. If you guys don't know, by the way, in the Bible, like the Old Testament in particular, there are wizards. There are wizards and necromancers and magicians and warlocks and just like humans that straight up do magic. And it is implied that they are like minor gods, that they can achieve, yeah, like basically they can achieve like the status of being like a minor god. Because in the Old Testament, especially in the early bits, the way it's written and the purpose of, like, I'm not going to get super into it anyway, but regardless, it's very like tribal god type shit early on. And so there's like wizards and warlocks and shit that can reach arguably a threatening level to Yahweh, aka capital G God, which is just wild to think about. Anyway, I don't know how we got down that stun lock, but like conservatives, they hated Harry Potter because they found it satanic, and so they would burn the books, and people on the left or just generally like non-insane people would call it out as crazy. So J.K. Rowling was always at least perceived for years and years, I think, by most as a somewhat left-leaning person, maybe even as a feminist for Hermione's character, who's kind of like almost like a feminist self-insert type thing. You know, she's very like high achieving. She gets shit for being a girl, but then still succeeds all regardless. Like it's very much like it's right there. It's not very well hidden. It's not very subtextual. And so what I found every time is that these people later on in life, they just go down this like spiraling rabbit hole of conservatism. But for the most part, if you can think of a current beloved figure who got big off of something that isn't related to like left or right-wing politics, 99% of the time, they're progressive. So that's why you just see so many celebrities and beloved actors and stuff at the DNC, because most of these people who have any kind of talent to get where they are, usually they're not, they just happen to be left-leaning more often than not. I'm not saying that being conservative precludes you from having talent. That's obviously not the case. There are talented conservatives out there. I'm mostly saying that art expression is not something the right values, and I feel that if you're going to be a conservative, you're probably not going to grow up in an environment that values art as an expressive form. And so you're not likely to find your talents expressed. You're not going to express your talents if you're a conservative. I'm sure there are amazing, talented artists out there that are conservatives who have been pressured and shamed into shying away from being into art because it's not considered a thing that they should be expected to do, right? Like, I'm sure half the conservative gym bros you see, like, cranking out reps, and good for them for that, you know? They could probably, if they put time into it, become a amazing artist, right? And maybe even when they were younger, they drew a ton, but grew up in a conservative area and, you know, art's not seen as masculine, so they got into weightlifting instead. Who knows? I'm sure there's tons of cases like that.
And Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a person who has...
Yeah, like there's exceptions, right? Like Clint Eastwood or like Alec Baldwin, I think, is pretty conservative. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or no, I think he's actually pretty progressive. He was known for making fun of Trump. Maybe not progressive, but, you know, anti-Trump. Who is it that I'm thinking of? That's like an actor who's known for being conservative. Fuck, I'm trying to think. God, nothing's coming to mind right now. The celebrity part of my brain is off right now. I'm sorry.
Spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. As you heard from Michelle, Kamala was not born into privilege. She had to work for what she's got. And she actually cares about what other people are going through.
Man, I guess it's hard to remember because Arnold is a never Trumper. He's like, I don't know if you guys know, but Arnold Schwarzenegger did a whole, like, video thing where it's him sitting at a desk in a suit with his hands crossed, like, just absolutely shit-talking Trump and calling him a racist, a sexist, a misogynist, a bigot, a homophobe, and a transphobe. So, yes, Arnold says trans rights. He also says gay rights, and he seemed to at least imply, if I remember correctly, that he's pro-abortion rights. So he's against the Republicans going against abortion. Chuck Norris is a great example. Definitely a talented actor. I mean, he got to where he is now. He's also apparently very talented in martial arts as well, right? Which is, of course, a pretty conservative thing, right? Like most people probably associate martial arts with being conservative. So yeah, like that's a good example of someone who doesn't, who's talented, is famous, and is a conservative. But for the most part, you'll notice that most of these examples are kind of like typecast a little bit. Like Hulk Hogan, yeah, I mean, he's known and he's famous and he's pretty beloved, I guess. But at the same time, are you really surprised Hulk Hogan is a conservative? Are you surprised that Clint Eastwood is a conservative? Are you surprised that, like, Chuck Norris is a conservative based on what these guys are known for? Like, you're never really surprised when someone who's already famous ends up being conservative. Joe Rogan is another example. These are people who come from places where you could have bet 10 times out of 10 correctly on where they would be politically, right?
She's not the neighbor running the leaf blower. She's the neighbor
Country
rushing over to
musicians.
help when you need a hand. As a prosecutor, Kamala stood up for children who had been victims of sexual abuse.
She did do
As
that.
an attorney general of the most populous state in the country.
Hey, chat, how many chomos have you prosecuted? That's right, 0. Kamala has prosecuted infinitely more chomos than you. That's something. That is definitely something. It's not nothing, that's for sure.
She fought big banks and for-profit colleges, securing billions of dollars
Billions.
for the people they had scammed. After the home mortgage crisis, she pushed me and my administration hard to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement.
I think that's true. There are a lot of cases where currently very prominent Democrats were pushing Obama on, like, more progressive on issues. For those who don't know, Biden was the one who basically strong-armed Obama and, like, pushed him over the edge to codifying gay marriage federally. Like, it's not entirely because of Biden, but in large part because of Biden that we got federally legal gay marriage. And mind you, it was not that long ago when I remember my stepdad at the time had coworkers and or a coworker, and she was a woman who was married to another woman, and they lived in Florida, which is obviously, like, you don't see that too often in Florida unless you're in a city, and we're in a very rural location at the time, and so you're like, well, how'd you get married? Because this is 2016, like a little bit after gay marriage had been federally legalized, and they'd been married for years, and I was like, well, how'd you get that done, like, in Florida, you know? And they were like, oh yeah, we had to go to another state. That was not so long ago, the reality of it. If you were a gay couple who'd been together for, God, it could be a decade, and you wanted to get married, you had to go and look up what was the closest state where you could go get married. This was in my lifetime, and I was, like, old. I was in high school when this changed. You know, like, this is recent history.
Didn't matter that I was a Democrat. Didn't matter that she had knocked on doors for my campaign in Iowa. She was going to fight to get as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it.
Face.
As vice president, she helped take on the drug companies to cap the cost of insulin, lower the cost of health care, give families with kids a tax cut. And she is running for president with real plans to lower costs even more and protect Medicare and Medicaid and sign a law to guarantee every woman's right to make her own health care decisions.
Mind you, this is one of the highest polling wedge issues in this entire election, okay? Immigration, women's reproductive rights. Two of the biggest wedge issues of this entire election, along with the economy. Those are the three things that the Democrats, I think, need to hit home on the most. The economy and how they plan to improve it. Immigration and how they plan to make it easier and safer. And how'd I forget the third thing? Oh, God. I'm so bad at listing things and elaborating and then listing the third thing. Hold on, let me take a drink of water to give myself time to think. Oh, yeah. And then abortion, of course, which the Republicans have a record of being so staunchly against. There's not really a lot of hard work that needs to be done there, but constantly reminding people of it, very important. Vote.
In other words, Kamala Harris won't be focused on her problems. She'll be focused on yours. As president, she won't just cater to her own supporters and punish those who refuse to kiss the ring or bend the knee. She'll work on behalf of every American. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz.
Woo! I love Tim Walz. He's dope.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I love this guy.
Me too.
Tim is the kind of person who should be in politics. Born in a small town, served his country, taught kids, coached football, took care of his neighbors. He knows who he is, and he knows what's important. You can tell those flannel shirts he wears don't come from some political consultant. They come from his closet, and they have been through some stuff.
Dude, I didn't even realize he wears flannel shirts. That's my go-to when I leave the house. I love flannel shirts. I'm a flannel shirt guy, if you don't know. No wonder I immediately liked him when I saw him. It's the flannel shirt. He just immediately made a good impression.
They have been through some stuff. That's right.
He has a flannel suit. That goes raw.
Together,
that's
Kamala
raw as hell.
And Tim
I love that.
Have
goes
kept
hard.
faith with America's central story. A story that says we are all created equal. All of us endowed with certain inalienable rights, that everyone deserves a chance, that even when we don't agree with each other, we can find a way to live with each other.
Obviously, this is a little tone deaf when you can, if you're like more progressive and you know, like you're a little more willing to accept that like civility politics is dead. The Republicans want like countless Americans dead or deported. It's hard to sort of vibe with this rhetoric, but I think it's still important when you consider how many middle of the road voters there are that are truly still of the opinion that like there is a certain level of decorum that the Democrats need to be held to, and yet they still have a double standard for the Republicans. Well, you have to realize, even if they aren't conservative, the median voters have a big double standard. The Republicans have to do a lot worse than the Democrats for it to be the same level of severe. Median voters have a higher standard for the Democrats on many levels, and this means the Democrats have to keep to a level of civility that the Republicans don't even have to worry about. This is just normal politician talk. Yeah, the Democrats have to stick to it. They either have to be extremely affable like Walz and not sound like a politician in the way he does, or sound like a politician in a very polite and well put together way, and like harping on the unity point a lot. It's effective with the median voters right now, trust me.
That's Kamala's vision. That's Tim's vision. That's the Democratic Party's vision. And our job over the next 11 weeks is to convince as many people as possible to vote for that vision. Now, it won't be easy. The other side knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism, always has been.
That is true.
They will tell you that
it's true everywhere, by the way. It's been true since the invention of the printing press. It has been true. And it's more true than ever on the internet as well. You'll notice how much like the right just kind of eases their way, just slides their way into a prominent position, because the fear-mongering, the hate stirring, the shit stirring that they do, and the like profiting off of already pre-existing hate is such an effective way to drive attention and clicks. And it's what the Republican Party has been fueled on for a while. It's just that isn't a very consistent and sustainable fuel source for a political movement or any kind of movement.
government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers. And since the game is rigged, it's okay to take what you want and just look after your own. That's the easy path. We have a different task. Our job is to convince people that democracy can actually deliver. And in doing that, we can't just point to what we've already accomplished. We can't just rely on the ideas of the past. We need to chart a new way forward to meet the challenges of today. And Kamala understands this.
Yes, just a transition.
She knows, for example, that if we want to make it easier for more young people to buy a home, we need to build more units and clear away some of the outdated laws and regulations that made it harder to build homes for working people in this country. That is a...
It's not the exclusive policy that needs to be done, but yes, there is a big problem with access and the number of affordable housing units, like particularly in more... Something that's happening right now is obviously people are fleeing urban and suburban and rural areas to cities. This has been a consistent trend for a very long time. People tend to move away from red areas to cities. There are more job opportunities in cities. The cost of living is higher. Everything tends to be more expensive, but there's also just more opportunity to make more money. There's more things to do. People, more so than ever, are just attracted to cities. The problem with that is, in those cities, some of the most popular in the country, New York being one of the worst, due to a variety of problems, for example, zoning laws, like Roxagon said, there are massive problems with the amount of available housing in the first place. Don't get me wrong, there are greedy landlords, corporations that buy up like units and keep them empty, and hike up the prices over time. All this is real. These are all problems that also separately need to be engaged. But to be very clear here, there is a problem, and it's not build more houses. It's build more affordable housing units. This means apartments. This means duplexes. This means houses in some cases, but more often than not, it's going to mean apartments. I think that that's a good thing. I think American cities should have more apartments, more walkable cities. I will say that, like, one of my favorite things about living in Washington is that Seattle is made up of a bunch of towns together. So when you go to any town in Seattle, like say you go to Renton, which is like a very notable town that's sort of bordering Seattle, part of it basically. It's part of like the layout. Renton, its downtown, is this nice little like walkable, cute neighborhood. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they've got housing problems there too, particularly because like there's a lot of homeless people there, so there's definitely housing problems in Renton. But there's apartments. Like you walk down the main street and it's like this nice walkable, cute main street with businesses, and then above them there's apartments. Every single one of them has like a few like stories of apartments above them, and people live in them. Some of the people living in them even operate the businesses below. And it's just this layout that feels so efficient and nice, and that's the kind of thing that those zoning laws have banned. It's an iconic, classic form of city planning that you can't do anymore in a lot of places, and it's bullshit. But yeah, we need more apartments, more affordable housing units. It's a big part of the problem.
A priority, and she's put out a bold new plan to do just that. On health care, we should all be proud of the enormous progress that we've made through the Affordable Care Act.
Oh yeah.
Providing millions of
Obamacare.
people access to affordable coverage, protecting millions more from unscrupulous insurance practices. I noticed, by the way, that since it's become popular, they don't call it Obamacare no more.
I love that. That's really good. That was a good jab on his part. Banger. Yeah. By the way, Kamala and Biden passed the biggest infrastructure bill in American history. I don't bring it up a lot, and I don't know if I covered it. I think I gave it its own segment, but it was a while ago, so I don't really bring it up all that often. But that was a big thing. Kamala Harris and Biden spent like 6 months fighting tooth and nail and then succeeded to pass the most expansive and biggest funding infrastructure bill ever in American history. Fucking crazy. They don't really get a lot of credit for that. I mean, Kamala is now, I guess, not as much as she probably should, especially this close to the election, but that was big.
But Kamala knows we can't stop there, which is why she'll keep working to limit out-of-pocket costs.
Hell yeah.
Kamala knows that if we want to help people get ahead, we need to put a college degree with it.
For those who don't know, Obamacare will cover your medical costs. From my understanding, if it's like any other coverage for your medical stuff, there's a certain amount you have to pay out of pocket, and then once you exceed that point, the rest of it, or certain amounts of set quantities, will be paid for by it. It depends on a lot of things, and one of the things the Republicans tried to do was make it so that people with any pre-existing condition would no longer be able to have access to Obamacare. They would no longer benefit from it, which is, of course, evil, because most people who need that kind of thing have a pre-existing condition, right? Like, what do you mean? Like, why would a pre-existing condition reasonably be a reason why you shouldn't have coverage? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's just evil.
Within reach of more Americans. But she also knows college shouldn't be the only ticket to the middle class. We need to follow the lead of governors like Tim Walz, who said, if you've got the skills and the drive, you shouldn't need a degree to work for state government. And in this new economy, we need a president who actually cares about the millions of people all across this country who wake up every single day to do the essential, often thankless work, to care for our sick, to clean our streets, to deliver our packages. We need a president who will stand up for their right to bargain for better wages and working conditions.
Dude, what's really interesting is that I was able to witness growing up how big of a difference a presidential administration under Obama compared to Trump or the Republicans that came before were. Because my grandma never had a lot of money in the time that I knew her. And for most of the time that I knew her, she just kind of sold stuff at flea markets. She would go to the flea market and then she would basically try to flip jewelry. Like, she'd spot something and be like, ooh, I know that's way more valuable than it's being sold for, and I know it's real, because she'd have a whole kit and stuff. And then she'd haggle, try to get a low price for it, and then resell it. And that was what she did. And her quota, to come home and feel like, yeah, bills can get paid at the end of this month, was $100, which sounds like a lot, but she only was able to go and work on the days the flea markets were up in the area, because she had to drive there early in the morning. And that was usually at most 5 days a week, right? And so it wasn't a lot to live off of. And she would definitely have been considered living in poverty. And when Obama got elected, she abso-fucking-lutely benefited from the ACA. And not just that, but there are other programs people have forgotten about that Obama signed off on and funded that massively improved the situation for lower-income people back then. Mind you, I'm talking about 2008 to 2010 right now, a time before, like, anybody had, like a smartphone, right? Obama funded a program that made it so if you were a lower-income person, you could get a free clamshell flip phone that was a cell phone. Like, my grandma did not have a cell phone before those free phones became a thing that you could apply for, and she got one, and it was a big deal for her. Like, it was game-changing. There are a ton of things like that Obama signed off on and funded that, like, are just night and day differences between, like, the existence of being like a poor American under a Republican and under any Democrat.
And Kamala will be that president. Yes, she can.
Yeah, Obama phone.
Yes, she can.
We can. It's like, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Harris-Walz administration can help us move past some of the tired old debates that keep stifling progress. Because at their core, Kamala and Tim understand that when everybody gets a fair shot, we are all better off. They understand that when every child gets a good education, the whole economy gets stronger.
That is objectively true.
When women are paid the same as men for doing the same job, all families benefit.
2016 anti-SJW people fucking seething and crying and pissing and shitting themselves. Yes, the wage gap is real. Yes, it is an earnings gap, we know. And no, we're not claiming that bosses intentionally just pay women less. That does sometimes happen, though. Like, in cases where there's negotiable salaries, that's actually, like, a big problem. But that's still itself very rare. The earnings gap exists due to a variety of socioeconomic factors, which are the things the left discusses and is trying to address, right? But the right, if you weren't, like, in politics in, like, 2016, then you have no idea why I'm harping on this point. But if you know what was a popular talking point back then and what the narrative was like in those days, then you know why I'm saying this, because oh my god. Oh.
They understand that we can secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents. Just like we can keep our streets safe while also building trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve and eliminating bias, that will make it better for everybody.
Saw a tweet the other day. It's very good, and I feel like it should be like the tagline, motto, like go-to mantra for everyone who wants police reform. It simply went like this. There's no popular song called Fuck the Fire Department. So if the cops want people to like them and stop shit-talking them, they should do their job better. Good tweet. Like it.
Donald Trump and his well-heeled donors, they don't see the world that way.
There is,
For
wait.
them, one group's gains is necessarily
It's
another
not
group's
popular,
loss.
though, Roxagon.
For them, freedom means that the powerful can do pretty much what they please. Whether it's fire workers trying to organize a union, or put poison in our rivers, or avoid paying taxes like everybody else has to do. Well, we have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom to provide for your family if you're willing to work hard. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send your kids to school without worrying if they'll come home.
It's pretty hard to dislike this messaging, you know? It's like it's the perfect rhetoric right now, because the median voters are, God, they're like They're like the people chained to the wall in Plato's cave. That is what the median voter is like. You need to understand. They see only a shadow of the big picture. They don't understand the world outside the cave.
We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own life, how we worship, what our family looks like, how many kids we have, who we marry. And we believe that freedom requires us to recognize that other people have the freedom to make choices that are different than ours. That's okay. That's the America Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in. An America where we, the people, includes everyone. Because that's the only way this American experiment works. And despite what our politics might suggest, I think most Americans understand that. Democracy isn't just a bunch of abstract principles and dusty laws in some book somewhere. It's the values we live by. It's the way we treat each other, including those who don't look like us, or pray like us, or see the world exactly like we do.
It's a very heartfelt speech. I do wonder, like, man, I'm curious to see how the results of the election turn out, you know? It's just one of those things where it's like, man, I wish I could just fast forward and see, like, how this turns out and spoil myself. But we just gotta wait and see.
That sense of mutual respect has to be part of our message. Our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others, unless they agree with us on every single issue.
Oh, this is a good point. Dude, so obviously this sounds almost reminiscent of what you hear conservatives say, and the reason conservatives say this shit is it's effective. It's a complete lie. It's misrepresentative of what they believe. But it is an effective talking point. The idea that the left is obsessed with politics, they can't accept anyone with differences, and that, like, basically that line of argument, but referring to the left. But when conservatives say it, they don't even necessarily refer to the left. They say it just like he said it there. When Obama said that, that's the kind of thing that Republicans and conservatives say to the median voter, the guys in the cave looking at shadows in the wall, and they fall for it. So the fact that Obama is engaging in this rhetoric of calling out something that a lot of median voters are fed up with, which is the idea of politics taking over everything, right? Like, hold on, I saw like that message is intended for people like who made this skit. Let me see if I can find it. I wonder if it would come up in my history. Let me see. Search watch history. This is a great skit, by the way. I do just straight up want to show it because it's funny as hell. Let's see if I can find it. Nope, YouTube watch history fails me again. Let me see if I can find it. Am I looking for lost media again? That's not it. That's not it. For some reason, a Sargon short came up. A Michael Knowles short came up. I forgot. Shorts algorithm is just flooded with right-wing garbage, whether you search for it or not. Cool, it's lost media now. Dude, I love watching something like yesterday, going to search for it, because I thought it was funny and want to watch it again, and it's already lost media. Fucking crazy, dude. Google's gotten so bad. Like, it's getting so bad. Like, you better make sure you bookmark shit you like to watch frequently, because it might just refuse to show up for you ever again, like, out of nowhere.
We start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and shame and out-yell the other side. And after a while, regular folks just tune out.
That's the second time this segment I had to just give up trying to find something because it's lost media now.
Or they don't bother to
No,
vote.
it's not Google. No, when I say it's Google, I mean it's the search. Like, it doesn't matter what, and you can't use a different search engine and get away from it. It's because Google hosts like the results and the loading of like responses and stuff. Every search browser is affected by this.
Vote. Now, that approach may work for the politicians who just want attention and thrive on division, but it won't work for us. To make progress on the things we care about, the things that really affect people's lives, we need to remember that we've all got our blind spots and contradictions and prejudices, and that if we want to win over those who aren't yet ready to support our candidates, we need to listen to their concerns and maybe learn something in the process.
This is good rhetoric. It's obviously hollow that this isn't what they're going to do, but it's good rhetoric because there might at least be some well-meaning, undecided voters that are Democrats that are like a very small portion on the wedge issue of Gaza-Israel. You got to remember, it's a very low polling issue in this election. Those people should still have some kind of messaging aimed at them to try and bring them on board. Though it's kind of a lost cause, it's worth trying.
After all, if a parent or grandparent occasionally says something that makes us cringe, we don't automatically assume they're bad people. We recognize that the world is moving fast, that they need time and maybe a little encouragement to catch up. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us.
This is good.
That's how we can build a true Democratic majority, one that can get things done. And by the way,
God.
That does not...
I love the getting things done. You know, because, like, that's the best part of all this. It's not all bluster. Like, over the last 4 years, Biden and Kamala have gotten shit fucking done. I know because I've been covering it. And so I'm just hyped for another 4+ years of getting shit done. I'm excited for that. It makes me giddy, the prospect of it. It should make you excited, too, just to be able to see the reward we get for turning out and voting in November if we win this.
Not just matter to the people in this country. The rest of the world is watching to see if we can actually pull this off. No nation, no society has ever tried to build a democracy as big and as diverse as ours before. One that includes people that over decades have come from every corner of the globe. One where our allegiances
India.
and our community are defined not by race or blood,
America's about as
but
diverse
by
as
a
it
common
gets.
creed. And that's why when we uphold our values, the world's a little brighter.
Like, America, like, as much as conservatives try to deny it, America has always been described as the melting pot. Like, there's a reason that term has, like, for longer than there has been a culture war to be fought over immigration, that has been the term used to describe America, even in the colonial days, because it's just, like, the country was started by so many different groups of people, and it started out, like, more restrictive and just continuously broadened, you know? Like, hell, the history of, like, Irish people going from not to being considered white and being afforded the legal privileges that came with that. That history basically went down primarily in America. There's just been a lot of, like, some of the biggest civil rights movements in human history, America. It's hard to say that's not the case. America has fundamentally been woke before it was even cool. Yeah.
When we don't,
The idea of America is
the world's a
extremely
little
woke.
dimmer. And dictators and autocrats feel emboldened. And over time, we become less safe. We shouldn't be the world's policeman, and we can't eradicate every cruelty and injustice in the world. But America can be and must be a force for good, discouraging conflict, fighting disease, promoting human rights, protecting the planet from climate change, defending freedom, brokering peace.
I like the framing of, like, you know, America needs to lead the world on defeating climate change as, like, yeah, that's a war America needs to fight and be the headline leader in. We do war best, so why don't we do war best against climate change? That kind of rhetoric I feel is very effective.
That's what Kamala Harris believes, and so do most Americans. Now, I know these ideas can feel pretty naive right now. We live in a time of such confusion and rancor, with a culture that puts a premium on things that don't last. Money, fame, status, likes. We chase the approval of strangers on our phones.
True.
We build all manner of walls and fences around ourselves, and then we wonder why we feel so alone.
This resonates a lot with Gen Z especially, you know, because Gen Z is like the most isolated generation in a sort of social sense, despite being the most connected. That's sort of like the general consensus most people have, even in Gen Z, that while technology is great, social media is great, there's a lot of downsides to it. And like, I feel like when I was young, social media made me feel like I was constantly like surrounded by like a group of people, and I was like at least like almost in public when I'm online. I get that feeling a lot less as I get older, you know, where it feels much more like an isolating thing than a connecting thing.
We don't trust each other as much because we don't take the time to know each other. And in that space between us, politicians and algorithms teach us to caricature each other and troll each other and fear each other. But here's the good news, Chicago. All across America, in big cities and small towns, away from all the noise, the ties that bind us together are still there. We still coach Little League and look out for our elderly neighbors. We still feed the hungry in churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. We share the same pride when our Olympic athletes compete for the gold. Because the vast majority of us do not want to live in a country that's bitter and divided. We want something better. We want to be better. And the joy and the excitement that we're seeing around this campaign tells us we're not alone. You know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about these past few months because, as Michelle mentioned, this summer we lost her mom, Ms. Marion Robinson.
That's sad.
And I don't know that anybody has ever loved their mother-in-law any more than I love mine. Mostly it's because she was funny and wise and the least pretentious person I knew. That, and she always defended me with Michelle when I messed up. I'd hide behind her.
I love that.
But I also think one of the reasons Mary and I became so close was she reminded me of my grandmother, the woman who helped raise me as a child. And on the surface, the two of them did not have a lot in common. One was a black woman from right here, south side of Chicago, right down the way. Went to Englewood High School. The other was a little old white lady born in a tiny town called Peru, Kansas.
Peru, Kansas.
I know there aren't that many people from Peru.
That was actually good. All the Kansas people, like the very small amount of people in the audience from Kansas, start cheering because he mentioned Kansas. He's like, I'm pretty sure not even that many people are from Peru. That's great. I love that.
And yet they shared.
He just has great stage presence, you know? Like Obama kind of set the standard for the State of the Union address being like he would do the union dinner thing or whatever it was called, and he would have like a stand-up special basically up on stage. Like people tuned into that because the president was going to do a fucking stand-up special pretty much. Like and it was good. Like Obama's funny and charismatic. It works.
A basic outlook on life. They were strong, smart, resourceful women, full of common sense, who, regardless of the barriers they encountered, and women growing up in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they encountered barriers. They still went about their business without fuss or complaint and provided an unshakable foundation of love for their children and their grandchildren. In that sense, they both represented an entire generation of working people who, through war and depression, discrimination and limited opportunity, helped build this country. A lot of them toiled every day at jobs that were often too small for them and didn't pay a lot. They willingly went without just to keep a roof over their families' heads, just to give their children something better. But they knew what was true. They knew what mattered. Things like honesty and integrity, kindness and hard work.
Dude, people in the crowd crying. God damn.
They weren't impressed with braggarts or bullies. They didn't think putting other people down lifted you up or made you strong. They didn't spend a lot of time obsessing about what they didn't have. Instead, they appreciated what they did. They found pleasure in simple things. A card game with friends, a good meal, and laughter around the kitchen table. Helping others. And most of all, seeing their children do things and go places that they would have never imagined for themselves.
Which is obviously every parent's dream. Very good rhetoric.
Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or somewhere in between, we have all had people like that in our lives. People like Kamala's parents, who crossed oceans because they believed in the promise of America. People like Tim's parents, who taught him about the importance of service. Good, hard-working people who weren't famous or powerful, but who managed in countless ways to leave this country just a little bit better than they found it. As much as any policy or program, I believe that's what we yearn for. A return to an America where we work together and look out for each other. A restoration of what Lincoln called, on the eve of Civil War, our bonds of affection. An America that taps what he called the better angels of our nature. That is...
I really feel like I've been sort of vindicated with my talking up of Obama's speaking skills here, where he just goes in and just rolls out the rawest speech he's ever done. You know, he had like 8 years to work on this or whatever.
What this election is about. And I believe that's why if we each do our part over the next 77 days, if we knock on doors, if we make phone calls, if we talk to
Canvas,
our friends,
phone bank,
if we listen to our
convince
neighbors,
your friends and family to vote.
if we work like we've never worked before, if we hold firm to our convictions, we will elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. And Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. We will elect leaders up and down the ballot who will fight for the hopeful, forward-looking America we all believe in. And together, we too will build a country that is more secure and more just, more equal, and more free. So let's get to work. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
Dude, I gotta stop before the copyrighted music starts, but damn, that was a powerful speech. I feel so far that's gotta be the best one, but tomorrow I want to cover the last speech I plan to cover of the DNC, which is Tim Walz. And, you know, I love Tim, so as you can imagine, I'm quite excited for that one. I'm wondering if it's going to end up being the best speech. So yeah, with that said, I feel very vindicated because yes, Obama absolutely still has it, as I said before, and we're not going back. We're not going back. We need to vote. And not just that, you need to, if you want to make a big difference, you can type !PV in the website chat and click on the link to join up with Progressive Victory. Or hell, you can even look for more local organizations that are canvassing and phone banking for progressive candidates in your area, especially local elections, since that can really impact you in more ways than even federal elections can. Get involved. It's not that hard. Phone banking is really, you don't even have to leave the house. And if you're looking to like knock on doors and convince people face to face to vote progressive, then go all in with the canvassing operations. It's fantastic. Anyway, with that said, if you enjoyed this segment or you feel like you learned anything or you just if you were even entertained, consider dropping a like. Every thumbs up, no matter when, where, or what you're watching from me, really helps the channel a ton. It twists YouTube's arm into pushing my content out to more people in the algorithm. So if you haven't already hit that like button, please consider it. It helps a ton. So thank you to everybody who's already done that. Subscribe, ring the bell icon so YouTube tells you when I go live or upload a new video, and comment down below to also boost the channel too. I love the comments. I also like reading the comments. It's fun. And of course, consider following my social medias, linked down below in the description. Most important of all, join my fan Discord. Think I'm good. Join my fan Discord. It's totally free. Costs nothing to join. It's the main hub of my community and fan base, and I host game events, call-in streams, and watch parties there almost every week. And on top of that, I announce all my new uploads and streams. So if YouTube doesn't end up notifying you, at least if you're in my Discord, you'll get an announcement, as long as you got notifications on for Discord and stuff. On top of that, if you want to support me financially, directly, and you want to, help me make ends meet and all that stuff, then consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buying merch at the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me, though, even if you're just lurking around and watching the stream, I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching.